In 1955, a rescue crew stepped aboard a ghost ship floating in the South Pacific, finding steaming mugs of coffee still sitting on the tables. But there wasn't a single person on board. No crew, no passengers, no bodies, no distress signals, no explanation. Just an empty vessel drifting silently through thousands of miles of open ocean as if the people aboard had simply ceased to exist. Before we talk about what happened, you need to understand what the MV Joyita was. Built in 1931 in Los Angeles, she was originally a luxury motor yacht, sleek, elegant. Her name means Little Jewel in Spanish, and for a time she lived up to that name. Owned by a Hollywood filmmaker, used by the US Navy during World War II. By 1955, though, the Little Jewel had fallen on harder times. She was now a trading vessel in the South Pacific, working the routes between Samoa and the remote Tokelau Islands. Her captain was Thomas Dusty Miller, a former naval officer, a man who knew the ocean deeply, a man who loved the Joyita almost obsessively. He once said something that people would later find deeply haunting. He said the Joyita was unsinkable, that her cork-lined hull meant she could never go down, that no matter what happened, the ship would always float. He was right about that. He just never anticipated what would float without him. October 2nd, 1955. The port of Apia, Western Samoa. The Joyita was scheduled for a routine journey, 270 miles north to the Tokelau Islands, a trip that should take around 40 hours. On board were 25 people, 16 crew, 9 passengers. Among them were 2 government officials, a doctor named D.W. Parsons, and several families simply trying to get home. But the departure was already going wrong. The Joyita was supposed to leave early morning. She didn't sail until late afternoon, delayed by nearly a full day, for reasons that were never clearly explained. Then there was the radio. The ship's transmitter had a known fault. It could only broadcast a few miles, a fraction of what was needed for open ocean travel. It should have been fixed before departure. It wasn't. The ship left anyway. 270 miles of open Pacific, a damaged radio, a delayed departure pushing them into night sailing, and 25 human beings aboard a vessel that was, in multiple ways, already compromised. The Joyita never arrived in Tokelau. 2 days passed, then 3. At first, authorities assumed a simple delay, but 5 days passed, then a week. No radio contact, no sightings, no debris, no signal flares, nothing. A search was launched covering approximately 100,000 square miles of ocean. Aircraft searched from above. Vessels covered the most likely routes. Day after day after day, nothing. Families waited in Tokelau. Officials in Samoa grew increasingly alarmed. And somewhere out there, in one of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth, the Joyita drifted on, alone, quiet. October 10th, 1955, 5 weeks after departure. A merchant vessel called the Tuvalu was sailing near the Fiji Islands, roughly 600 miles off course from the Joyita's intended route, when her crew spotted something in the distance. A vessel, listing heavily to one side, partially flooded, moving with the current rather than under any controlled direction. They drew closer, made out the name on the hull, Joyita. The rescue crew boarded carefully. What they found inside was one of the most disturbing scenes in modern maritime history. The ship was real, the ship was there, but the people were gone. Every single one of them. The vessel was listing at roughly 25 degrees, partially flooded, but still afloat. The engines were still capable of running. Navigational equipment was present. Food and drinks remained in the galley, sitting in eerie stillness. Then came the medical details. Scattered across the deck were medical supplies, bandages, equipment belonging to Dr. Parsons, and bandages soaked with blood. Not a small amount, significant amounts, suggesting someone had suffered a serious injury during the voyage. Then investigators found the radio. Someone had manually tuned it to 2,182 kilohertz, the International Maritime Distress Frequency, the Universal Emergency Channel. Someone on that ship had tried to call for help, but the transmitter was still damaged. Any signal would have been swallowed immediately by the vast emptiness of the Pacific, and no one heard it. The lifeboats were missing. The dinghy was gone. The clock in the wheelhouse had stopped, and somewhere in the debris, a length of pipe wrapped in material, in the style of a makeshift weapon, showing signs consistent with impact. 25 people had been on this ship, and now there was nothing left but clues that pointed in every direction and nowhere at all. Over the decades, investigators proposed 4 major theories, none proven, none ruled out. The first theory is panic and evacuation. The flooding in the engine room was real. If the crew discovered it at night, in poor conditions with a barely functional radio, panic could have set in fast. Someone was seriously injured. The blood tells us that. The situation deteriorated, and in a state of fear and confusion, passengers and crew may have abandoned ship on the life rafts, not realizing the Joyita, with her cork-lined hull, was in no real danger of sinking. They left a ship that would not sink and were consumed by an ocean that showed no mercy. The problem is Captain Miller, a man who publicly insisted the ship was unsinkable. It is very hard to believe he would abandon her, unless he was the one who was injured, unless he was no longer the one making decisions. The second theory is piracy. The South Pacific in the 1950s was not entirely safe for small trading vessels. Some investigators proposed the Joyita was boarded by pirates who overpowered the crew, took cargo and valuables, and disposed of the people at sea. The makeshift pipe weapon suggests someone prepared a defense, or that someone used a weapon offensively. Some cargo was missing, consistent with a chaotic boarding. But here is the problem. The ship was left behind. Pirates bold enough to kill 25 people at sea would almost certainly have taken the vessel too. A working ship has real value. Why leave her drifting? No suspect was ever named. No confession ever made. The third theory is mutiny. What if the violence came from within? A delayed departure, a broken radio, a flooding engine, 25 people trapped together in deteriorating circumstances. What if a dispute between Miller and the crew, or between crew and passengers, escalated into something brutal? The blood, the weapon, the disappearance of every single person. It is an uncomfortable theory, because it means the danger didn't come from the ocean. It means the danger came from each other. There is no direct evidence supporting mutiny. There is also no evidence ruling it out. The fourth theory is insurance fraud. Captain Miller had financial difficulties. The ship had maintenance problems. There were debts. Some investigators proposed the disappearance was staged, that the 25 people were transferred to another vessel by arrangement, and the Joyita was left to drift as part of an insurance scheme. The problem is this: 25 people, government officials, a doctor, families, requiring absolute coordination, and 70 years of total silence from every single person involved. Not one word, not one deathbed confession, not one unexplained financial transaction ever verified. And yet the theory persists, because humans struggle to accept that things can simply vanish. There is something none of these theories fully captures. The Pacific Ocean is not simply large, it is incomprehensible. At its widest point, it stretches over 12,000 miles. It covers more surface area than every continent on Earth combined. Average depth over 14,000 feet. 25 people on life rafts in 1955. No GPS, no satellite phones, no emergency beacons. Even if they survived the first night, even if the sea was calm and no one was critically injured, the odds of being found in 100,000 square miles of open ocean, with no functioning radio, with no one knowing where to look, were not odds. They were a prayer. And the Pacific doesn't answer prayers. No bodies, ever. Not one of the 25 people was ever recovered from the ocean, alive or dead. No life rafts were ever found, not intact, not destroyed, not washed ashore anywhere. No personal belongings of passengers or crew were ever recovered from the sea. No communication from any of the 25 was ever verified. In the history of maritime disasters, total absence of remains is exceptionally rare. When ships go down, something almost always surfaces eventually. Bodies, wreckage, life vests. The ocean is brutal, but it is rarely perfectly thorough. And yet the MV Joyita yielded nothing, as if the Pacific had reached up and quietly swallowed them whole and then smoothed itself back to glass. The official inquiry in 1956 admitted in formal measured language that the true cause could not be determined. The case was never closed. It remains officially unsolved to this day. The MV Joyita was repaired and returned to service. She changed hands multiple times. She ran aground in 1959 and was destroyed. The little jewel, the unsinkable ship, finally ended her journey in the mud of a Pacific island shore. Captain Thomas "Dusty" Miller was never found. Neither were his crew. Neither were the 9 passengers, the doctor, the officials, the families trying to get home. What strikes me, what has always struck people who study this case, is not the theories. It is the stillness. The image of that ship drifting alone. Coffee mugs in the galley. Bloody bandages on the deck. The radio tuned to a frequency no one could hear. The clock stopped. The life rafts gone. Someone on that ship knew they were in trouble. Someone tried to call for help. Someone was injured badly enough to need extensive medical attention. Someone fashioned a weapon. And then everyone was gone. The ship kept drifting. The coffee grew cold. The Pacific moved around her, vast and ancient and completely without concern. And somewhere in those 100,000 square miles of searched ocean, the answer exists. It has always existed. We just cannot reach it. 25 people, 0 answer. answers. The ocean never gives back its secrets willingly.